Council of Jewish Women of Canada has been actively involved in social action, education, and service. All who come to National Council share a belief that progressive ideals put into action can improve our community, our country, and the world. With 5 sections across Canada, Vancouver, Toronto, Simcoe County, Winnipeg, and Edmonton, we work within our communities to fulfill unmet needs. As a national organization, we're involved in educating about human trafficking, sharing information about Jewish genetic diseases, combating anti-Semitism, fighting racism, confronting domestic violence, and many more areas of interest that come up. Eva.
Thank you, Debbie. Yes, so anti-Semitism has always been a portfolio of our organization. But 2 years ago, Dalia Ruzinek, who headed this portfolio, felt that it was imperative that we reach out to our allies. Let's reach out to others who are hurting like we are. And thus, our first step was to reach out to the Canadian Council of Muslim Women. And we have been in dialogue since. We have participated in their amazing workshop on Islamophobia, which I believe Shuma, your organization, has also participated in. And they've also embarked on learning about us. And that is truly how we feel our Women to Women Against Racism will move forward, by just getting to know each other and with respect, honoring our similarities and our differences. Now, today, I would like to take a few moments to share with you why I personally am so passionate about this project. And it starts with, I'm come from a long lineage of Hungarian Jews. And we transported here to Canada in 1957 as refugees, and I was 2 years old at the time. And what that means is that my parents experienced World War II in Europe, and more specifically, that my parents went through the Holocaust. They were very open about sharing with me their experience, which I have to share was very hard to hear, but I'm going to share what they shared with me. In the 1930s, Hitler and Nazism was gaining control, and his mission, Hitler's mission to eradicate, to eliminate people of Jewish faith, was gaining ground and momentum. And in the early 1940s, when my mother was a mere like 10, 11 years old, my father 14, they started to feel the implications. Friends of theirs started to ostracize them, not want to play with them. Soon, school was closed off. They could not go to school. Jewish children could not go to school. Soon, they had to wear a yellow Star of David if they went out in public to show that they are Jewish. Soon, my grandparents could not work. Soon, they were confined to a small section of Budapest, and it became the Jewish ghetto. Now, fortunately, my grandparents had this family friend, dear family friend, Gentile family friend, who was able to procure false papers for my mother and her sister, my aunt. What this meant is that these false papers listed my mother and her sister as Catholic children. And on that paper, my mother's name was changed from Zsuzsa to Eva. My mother vowed then that if she survived, if she had a daughter, she would name her Eva. I still have a hard time saying that. Now, because of these false papers, my mother and her sister were able to be hidden in a convent there in Budapest. And in this convent, there were over 100 Jewish girls. And the convent was protected because it was under the protectorship of Raoul Wallenberg, who you may know that name. He's a famous Swiss diplomat who saved thousands of lives. As well, the head of that convent was posthumously recognized also in the Righteous Among the Gentiles in Yad Vashem, the predominant Holocaust memorial. So in this convent, along with like over 100 Jewish girls, they were kept there for the duration of the war. Miraculously, my grandparents survived and they were united after the war. My extended family perished. Unfortunately, many of the young girls, little girls in that convent were orphaned after the war. My father, a very young teen, and his parents were in work camps, also miraculously survived. And thus, after the war, they continued with their lives. In 1950, my parents met and were wed in Budapest, and then I came along. And life went on until 1956. There was the Hungarian Revolution. What started off as an uprising against the communist regime turned into something else. On the streets of Budapest, my parents heard, "Down with communism, down with Jews." Signal, they had to leave. My parents gathered their meager belongings that night, fled with me as a 2-year-old, escaped Hungary, escaped Budapest. And in 1957, we arrived here as refugees in this beautiful country. In this country where they found the peace, the tranquility, the peace that they sought. Now, through that time, as I've explained, I was privy to their stories, which was really hard to hear. I was always filled with guilt that how could I have erased this from them? But because of my name, Eva, which means life, because of the circumstances, I've been, in their honor, I believe, a true champion of human rights for all. For my children, for my beautiful new grandson, in my heart and soul, I will do anything to fight hatred, to fight racism, because I know what it can lead to. So my dear friends here today, this is why I am so passionate about this project, Women to Women Against Racism. We will now take a few minutes to show us a brief video on the history of anti-Semitism, just to put this into context. So I will hand it over to Robin, who will share this video with you.
Anti-Semitism is another word for hatred of Jews. It has existed for a very long time and still exists today. When Jews are verbally or physically abused, this is called anti-Semitism. The murder of 6 million Jews by the Nazis during World War II is the most extreme example of anti-Semitism. But how did it come about? And how do you recognize anti-Semitism? But first, what makes a person Jewish? You are Jewish when you have a Jewish mother. Many Jews are religious, but there are several different movements within Judaism, and you can also be Jewish without believing in God. Many Jews see themselves as part of the Jewish people. Jews live all over the world. That has been the case for 2,000 years, ever since the Romans took the Jews into slavery and brought them to Rome in the year 70 AD. After this, Jews spread out all over the world. Jews are a small minority in many countries. Often they are farmers, traders, or laborers living together peacefully with the other people in the country. But often, Jews were forced to live separately, isolated from the rest. Sometimes they lived in a ghetto, a closed-off neighborhood within the city. During the Middle Ages, the era from the year 500 to 1500, Jews were also a minority in Europe. Most people in Europe were Christians, and they had little contact with Jews. Old prints showed that Jews were viewed as different, or that they were hated even. Christians did not like that the Jews had a different religion, and that they did not see Jesus as their Savior and the Son of God. Some Christians even saw Jews as the people who murdered Jesus. Jews also had different customs. That is why Jews were often discriminated against, and many professions were prohibited to Jews. But they were allowed to work in trade and finance. The negative image of Jews continued to exist beyond the Middle Ages. When a country was not doing well, negative stories about Jews started to appear. They were excluded and even persecuted. Because a small but visible group of Jews was working in trade or finance, they were accused of being power-hungry, causing all kinds of ghost stories about Jews to appear. These stories were handed down from generation to generation and became deeply rooted. During the 20s and 30s of the 20th century, Hitler and the Nazis used these old ghost stories. They made Jews into scapegoats. For example, Hitler accused Jews of being the cause of the economic crisis. Losing World War I was also their fault, according to Hitler. Hitler and the Nazis saw the world as a struggle between the human races. More and more people started to believe that Jews caused problems and that the Germanic people were better.
Wenn es dem internationalen Finanzjudentum in und außerhalb Europas gelingen sollte, die Völker noch einmal in einen Weltkrieg zu stürzen, dann wird das Ergebnis nicht die Bolschewisierung der Erde und damit der Sieg des Judentums sein, sondern die Vernichtung der jüdischen Rasse in Europa.
In 1933, Hitler and the Nazis came to power in Germany. They took more and more measures to discriminate against Jews. For example, Jews were not allowed to marry other Germans anymore. People were also called upon not to buy from Jewish-owned shops anymore. In 1939, World War II started. Germany conquered country after country in Europe. In 1941, the Nazis decided to systematically persecute and kill all Jews in Europe. This is called the Holocaust, or the Shoah. And not only Jews, other groups like disabled, Roma and Sinti, and gay people were also persecuted. A total of 6 million Jews were killed. World War II ended in 1945. But anti-Semitism still exists. It shows up in different places, in different ways, sometimes very openly, when people on the street are verbally or physically abused for looking Jewish, when Jewish cemeteries or places of prayer are vandalized, or when anti-Jewish slogans are chanted during soccer games. Hatred and prejudice against Jews can also be found online. For example, myths like Jews are secretly in power in many countries, Jews control the media, or Jews control the global financial markets. Myths and ghost stories that are from the Middle Ages and still exist today. Sometimes it is unclear whether something is anti-Semitism or not. Lethal attacks on Jewish people are a clear case, but discussions about the Middle East or Israel are harder to judge. Some people make remarks that are obviously hateful against all Jews. But criticism on Israel is not always anti-Semitic. Prejudices, negative remarks, and extreme opinions can be offensive to Jews. They contribute to a negative image of all Jews and to the age-old ghost stories and myths. In short, anti-Semitism has existed for a long time, and unfortunately, it still does.
I hope that gives you a quick history of anti-Semitism and gives you a little idea of what the Jews have gone through and are still going through. Eva's account has given you a personal view of what effect the Holocaust has had on Eva as a child of survivors. And right now we want to show you a woman who now lives in Montreal, who is an actual Holocaust survivor. These people are becoming few and far between as the survivors are aging. And so we're so thankful that we still have some of these people who have given their testimonials of what it was like to actually be involved during the Holocaust. We'll now show this short video of this woman, Eva, in Montreal.
When my father returned to our area of the ghetto, he saw that everything was empty. There was nobody home. And he ran to Umschlagplatz because he knew from the past that this is where people were taken. And he saw huge numbers of women and children being forced onto cattle cars. And he tried to get in there because he told me many years later that whatever was going to happen to me and to my mother, he wanted to be there with us. Whatever was going to happen to us, he wanted to happen to him. And they wouldn't let him. They weren't looking for men at that time. They only wanted women and children. They threatened him at gunpoint and told him that they would shoot him point blank if he didn't get out of there. But before he ran to Umschlagplatz, he ran down to the cellar and he called Regina, my mother's cousin. And she ran to Umschlagplatz. And because she was a woman, maybe, or because she was wearing a prison guard uniform, she somehow slipped in and got there just in the nick of time. And she looked around frantically, looking to see if she could see anybody. Her mother and her sister were with us, and my mother was not only her cousin, but also her best friend, her closest friend. And just as she got there, she looked around and she saw that my mother, holding me in her arms, I was 2 years old, was being forced onto one of the cattle cars, pushed into the cattle car. And she ran to that cattle car and she started to scream at the top of her lungs that I was her child and that my mother was only babysitting for me. And I can't explain this because it's hard to believe under those circumstances. But for some miraculous reason, my mother was allowed to pass me hand to hand, hand to hand. I was thrown off that car into Regina's arms. And the doors of the cattle car closed. And eventually that train and hundreds of other trains like it pulled away. And the people on those trains were never heard from again. And this, I think, is the most dramatic part of my story, because it is something that haunts me to this day. Having children of my own, and now grandchildren of my own, I can't imagine what that must have been like for my mother, to do the absolute opposite of what instinct called her to do. She must have wanted to hold me close, to protect me with her own life, with her own body, as I would do for my children, as you would do for your children. But instead, she had to do the exact opposite, and she didn't have time to consider it. She didn't have time to think, should I do this, should I not? She had to make an instant decision.
That story is heart-wrenching. But it chokes me up. Anti-Semitism isn't going away. This was a long time ago. The Holocaust was a long time ago, but it continues to be a big concern today, even in our country, our wonderful country of Canada. It's not something that is only history. Trying to educate people about the reality of anti-Semitism today is very important to me. I grew up in the 60s in Toronto. I always identified as Canadian, being second generation Torontonian, and I lived in a very multicultural area. My Jewishness didn't make me feel any different from anyone else. We were all coming from different paths. I was accepted for who I was without regard to my religion. Once I went to university, I had my first taste of anti-Semitism. I became friends with a student who was not Jewish, and when she found out I was Jewish, she was surprised I didn't have horns. She looked at me as a real novelty. This was an educated person who had never met a Jew before, but was primed to believe that being Jewish was someone different or deviant. Well, the two of us became good friends, and we did have much in common. Especially, we were both mathematicians. So she learned that my religion did not take away from my humanism. It did not define me, but rather was a part of my makeup. Being Jewish was my religion. Being Canadian and Jewish was my identity. While at the University of Toronto, one of my exams was scheduled on Rosh Hashanah, a Jewish high holy day. When this was brought to the attention of the administration, it took many attempts to allow the Jewish students to write the exam another day. There was no regard to respect others' religions in those days. To change the date was a real struggle. This was another example of anti-Semitism. No apology, only difficulty. Over the last few years, the incidence of anti-Semitism has been on the uprise. Today, there are many examples, and they're deeply disturbing. As a grandparent, I worry about the widespread anti-Semitism today, both worldwide and within our very own community. Anti-Semitism is seen in the school system, the defaced buildings around Toronto, at the post-secondary level, in the workplace, and beyond. The predominance of false information presented as factual on social media, in particular, is disconcerting. It is said that we have to teach our children and grandchildren the tools to deal with the abundance of Jewish hatred. It's a sad state of affairs. The discrimination is unfounded, and yet it's a real reality. I feel compelled to work to help eradicate this form of discrimination and to help in the fight against all other forms of discrimination. One of the members of our Women to Women group offers a very different perspective on her experiences with anti-Semitism. Seeing this through her eyes is an important story, and I ask Monica Simon, please share. Unmute yourself, Monica.
Thank you for the reminder, Debbie. Yes, hello, everyone. I was born in Germany to German parents in 1948. I know that my parents lived through the war in Poland, which formerly was Germany prior to World War I. They fled to Munich when the Russians came in 1944. I was raised without knowledge of the atrocities against Jews, and I did not really ever know what my parents did during the war, except that my father did not serve during World War I because he served in he did not serve in World War II because he had served in World War I. I met my husband in 1968 in Munich while he was on a business trip. He was a secular Jew, although of religious conservative parents. We married in 1972, despite his mother's pleas to him not to marry a non-Jew and certainly not a German. When we had children, I wanted to convert to Judaism, to join a synagogue and raise them Jewishly. My husband was opposed because we did celebrate all Jewish holidays in our family, as well as Christmas and Easter. My children considered themselves Jewish. I eventually converted to Judaism after belonging to a synagogue as a non-Jew for over 20 years. Having experienced the consistent kindness, warmth, and support of the Jewish community, I cannot understand why anti-Semitism exists. Even now, as a Canadian, I carry the collective guilt of the crimes committed by Germans during the Nazi years, and always will. members of my husband's family were killed in the Holocaust. They themselves were hidden during the time in Budapest with the help of a Swiss diplomat. It is a miracle they survived. I'm a proud Jew, and I hope that the world will one day embrace Jews as brothers and sisters by rejecting the age-old prejudices against them. Thank you for listening to my story.
Thank you, Monica. I would like to share with you, dear friends, here today, that you can see that this hurts us. This comes from personal experience, and what we've shared with you is our lived experience. And again, that we're all hurting. And Shimona, again, on behalf of all of us, thank you so much for inviting us, because it shows your courage and your will to look at what is happening around the world, and that the only way we can eradicate hatred and racism is to embrace each other, to understand each other. And this was such a huge step. And this is what our Women to Women Against Racism wants to accomplish, to show as a model for the rest of the world, is that this is the only way to go forward. And so again, I thank you. I hope for those of you gathered here today, this gives you a little more understanding of our hurt, and that we also understand your hurt. We know from Islamophobia and you know, all the hatred out there, that it only leads to greater pain. So together we can eradicate the pain. So we're going to end our formal part of our session on anti-Semitism. Again, thank you, Shimona. Thank you for those who are here. We'd also like to wish you a Nowruz Mubarak and a Ramadan Mubarak, because I know that that is happening this evening and later this week. So at this point, we welcome any questions that you might have. Thank you.
Question, comments?
My name is Abdul. Can you hear me, please?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes, our baby can hear you.
So it is a very nice program and nice discussions, and very painful also, because it is the part of the life, part of the world also for a long time. So it has been going on. And if my comment is that as far as it is my personal view that 80 to 90% people, they like to live peacefully, irrespective of caste, racism, or religion, anything. The 10 to 15% peoples, they are directly or indirectly making these problems throughout the world. And this, among these 10 to 15% people are most the world leaders, political leaders, and some group of people. So they basically influence the innocent people. So that is my common general view. So for this reason, my comment or my suggestion is that first, we are in Canada. Canada is a little bit better, but still we are facing these problems, these racial problems and other problems. Also from the school life, also even the children are facing in the school. This also I have experienced with my relatives that have been facing in the school. So this type of project is very good, but we are to make some fruitful way to eliminate this. So this discussion is very useful, that like seminar and discussion, but we have to go little bit details to eliminate these things. From the government are giving fund to make awareness, but we are here, people, we have been awareness, but this awareness needs from the school level, elementary level, in the service, in the job area, in every sectors, the government or the people, we should go in every sector, not only in the conference, in the just like the BCCS doing, you're going in other places, but if starting from schools, jobs area, in every area, we have to intervene. Then it can be eliminated. And moreover, I'm sorry to say that the world leaders, political leaders, they've come forward. When the babies are born, he or she is very much innocent, irrespective of everything. But this surrounding this world of the surroundings of the world gradually make these things very sad. So thanks for the discussion and for this the information we got from there. There is a very painful. It is very because we are human beings. We forget that we are not human beings. We think we are Muslims, we are Jewish, we are Asian, we are American, we are British. This is not we are human beings. So let us teach everybody that we are human beings. So when you an engineer, an agriculturist, a medical doctor, they are doing their own job. So there is no much conflict. They are doing their jobs in their own area. So the Muslim, Jewish, Hindus, they will do their own religions in their own areas. Why there is a conflict? There is no conflict in the engineering, agriculturist, or medical, or accounting, or this. No great conflict. But conflict in the religion, conflict in the region. I am British, I am American, I am Asian, so there is a conflict. So we have to think every place, everywhere, that we are human beings. It is our area, we'll do our religious job, we'll do our other things. Then we will be able to eliminate. Otherwise, it is very difficult to eliminate, because I'm taking a little bit more time, because it is my experience. The things are coming days, it is increasing, not decreasing. And for this increasing, decreasing, I'm telling you frankly, the political leaders they might be hard, but political leaders are also partly responsible for these things. So they must also think very wisely, and let us start it in every sector. Then we can do a little bit. Thanks a lot. If I say anything wrong, I'm sorry for that. That is my views, I'm telling you frankly. Thank you.
Thank you so much for sharing your perspective. And you're right, we're all human beings, and that's what we have to spread. We're all the same in lots of ways. Are there any other questions, comments?
Asad
and-
Bhai, there is a hand. Asadul Hakim.
Okay,
Just go ahead.
you're muted. You're muted.
I'm Hakim. Professionally, I'm an architect, and I did town planning also. But one thing I feel that when you are killing a mosquito or an animal or a human being or anybody, you are a killer. That's the first thing. God created all of us at the same time with the same material, with the same thing, and looks like same, something like that. We have 2 hands, 2 eyes, 1 nose, and 1 head, and 2 legs. All these things is the same with everybody. So hating, racism, or killing somebody for something like that one, I personally don't like it. I call them as a killer. But one thing I wanted to know, is I don't know whether it will be concerned here. During Second World War, when Hitler in Germany, he was killing millions of Jewish people this irrespective of children, old, young, and everything in a gas chamber, mercilessly. And I didn't know why he was so much annoyed or angry on this the Jew people, in fact. So if you know, just for my own knowledge, I wanted to know what was the reason behind it, because at the time of his suicidal note, he wrote that I left some few of the Jew people to know the rest of the world, to know why I killed them. And he didn't say why he killed them, but he left to on the next generation people to see why he killed them. But if you have any idea on that one, what was the root cause for killing mercilessly so many honest, sincere children, women, and anyone killing like that one? So I wanted to know that, only that part, if you have any clue or any explanation on that one. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Hakeem. It's something, you know, as we've expressed, that we don't understand. You know, we are just like you, but and that's the problem with any hatred, that it's scapegoatism. It's, you know, who can we blame for our difficulty at this moment? And Jews have always seemed to be an easy target. And I mean, it's obviously a lot more complicated. So if anybody wants to help answer that question, but you know, that was a huge part of it. We've been historically scapegoats for what ails people. We were different. Yeah, so that's a part of it. Monica, did you want to answer that as well?
Yes, you're absolutely right what you said, Eva, but I also want to add that Hitler, before he came to power, had written a book. He was born in Austria, by the way. He had written a book called Mein Kampf, in which he basically outlines his ideas and his battle against the Jews that he considered to have diluted, poisoned the pure race, namely the Aryans. I'm not aware if there has ever been a professional and psychological profile on Hitler to have someone who knows more about it than any of us speculate what actually had brought him to this point. If he was, you know, burdened by his own childhood, but obviously it had to come from somewhere. But that's about all I can share with you. And of course, the fact that he was a passionate orator, that he happened to come to power while after the First World War, there was a lot of poverty, there was a lot of problems in Germany, and he managed to actually spell out the solutions to all these problems, such as building the Autobahn, building a train system, putting Germans to work, but at the same time also getting rid of the Jews.
Thank you.
Muhammad Rahman. Please go ahead with your question or comments.
Go ahead, Dorothy.
Muhammad Rahman, bhai, do you like to ask any question?
Mohammed, yes.
Yes, actually my mic was muted, sorry, it is that. Okay, yeah, obviously this is a very nice topics and very timely, I would say. And that Brother Abdul and Hakeem, they actually mentioned some of those good things. Thank you for that one. But yeah, it's becoming very common nowadays, and hatred against the religion, because shooting in the synagogue, shooting in the mosque, even shooting in the churches are not uncommon as well, and maybe less in number could be. But everything counts to the criminal activity. And here there is a very stringent rules and regulations and law against the criminal activity, but still it's surprising to see that it's still happening. So what will be the thing that as a society we have to do to stop it? It cannot be comprehended easily. So I think you are looking into it, and maybe you can recommend some way. Certainly, this could be one of the way, making people aware of it. But I don't know, the people who are doing this criminal activity, are they not aware of what they're doing? That's the thing I'm just wondering. Enforcement can be even made more stronger or more tough, not sure. That's my thought.
Thank you, Mohammed. I would just, sorry, I just want to say that, just to address Abdul, that the importance of reaching our youth is, just so you know that this is in the works. We don't want to, let you know ahead of time too much, but it is something that our committee, our Women to Women Against Racism, have taken very seriously, that the way forward is with our youth. So we are looking at programs that would reach young people, very young people, but the beauty is that going hand in hand. So rather than just going in and talking about anti-Semitism or just Islamophobia, the beauty of working with our sisters to do it jointly. And sorry, I don't mean to to ostracize the men in the group, but that's our particular focus. But we're taking that very seriously, Abdul, that the youth is the way to go, and we want to be proactive and positive, and that shining the light on how to go forward in harmony.
Sorry. You might remember, if I'm not incorrect in the naming, Smitherman or somebody, who he's a German, but he saved thousands of Jewish people, giving employment in his own company as a rich man. And he's a German and Hitler. These two different angles they're sitting, isn't it?
Yeah.
Is it a Smitherman? No.
Are you talking about Schindler?
Yes.
Say again?
Was it Schindler?
Yeah, Schindler.
Yes,
Yeah.
Schindler. Yes, Schindler. Yes, sorry, Schindler. Being a German, he took against, I should say, against Hitler to save Jewish people under his own umbrella, and he did it. So it looks like that whatever Hitler was thinking, it might not be correct. That's why Mr. Schindler, he took necessity action to save innocent Jewish people under his umbrella. In fact, still that's why still he's been adorned in Jerusalem on his grave still today.
Yes.
So that's why I was interested to know, why did he make a mistake, Hitler, or what was the reason behind it? Because there is some other German also helping them. So it was a bit confusing also.
Yeah. There are always good people and bad people everywhere, every country,
And it was
every
possible,
religion.
yeah, it was only possible for him that he was very rich and a big businessman and having connections with the generals and other, as if he could do it, in fact.
No, it's like he created a wave, and people under him, it's like become hypnotic to do this hateful thing. Now, after so many years, some people realize that time that this is wrong. But now when we think about it, we feel shocked in our heart that this kind of thing happened and how those people suffered. And I wonder sometimes the people who does this thing, what's what their mindset, like how they see other people, can see other people, that they can do these things to them. It's really painful, very painful.
I think what we're talking about is white supremacy, and I believe that that was one of the motivations of
Yeah,
Hitler.
right now, yeah, it's going on, rising kind of, yeah.
If you're white supremacist, you want to get rid of the people that you think are threatening you, because maybe they're taking your jobs and maybe they don't look like you.
Yeah,
And yeah.
I don't know.
And actually, Sam, so I'm Abdullah. I like to mention something that in last month I heard that in the Union Station, Toronto Union Station, the 8 teenagers, they killed a old man. So we think that teenagers are very innocent. So, but how I am still surprised. How could they kill a man of 63 years? So this mentality, this is thing that we need to change. So because they are growing and they are growing, their mentality is changing. So we have to work from the beginning. From the beginning, I am repeatedly, my idea is that if we don't work from the beginning, you cannot. So if you give me even a reward to kill a man, I will not be able to kill a man. No, by no means I cannot kill a man. But people are killing men. So this is the difference. So we have to teach everybody in every sector that we are human beings. So only these things can make little bit better. Well, it is very difficult to make the world better because the world, global politics and global everything is not in a good shape. So everybody is doing in every sector in different way. So that is a very big discussion. So for this reason, in Canada, at least in Canada, we are now Canadian citizens. We live in Canada. So at least we have to think about the Canada, but it is not an isolated matter. So, but still, I'll request you to let us start from the Canada. So from the beginning, every sector we have to intervene in every sector from the beginning, from the boyhood, from the childhood. So that can be little bit helpful. And the global leaders, I don't know how they will be corrected. That is different thing. I'm sorry to say. It is their different mind and different things. So this is a different issues. So I'm sorry to
thank you, Awal bhai. Thank you. You raised very good points and suggestions. Any other question from anyone or comments?
I just like to say that this is a very nice presentation. And I like that word, that all of this racism, hatred, and everything leads to greater pain. So the initiative to face this and work towards it definitely will helpfully develop sense awareness in our society, because it's a diverse society. So I hope that in future we'll able to build up something good towards because of these initiatives. So and keep working on it.
Thank you.
Thank you. And we all have to be hopeful, right?
Yeah.
If we aren't, it's the end. So we're all hopeful. And again, we can only thank everybody who's been here today, who's open and who's on a hopeful, peaceful path here. So we thank you for joining us.
Thank you, Eva. Not only hopeful, I believe we have to be active with our capacity. We should teach our grandchildren. Children are already, I think, children, grandchildren, families start from there, and whoever have the capacity to, whatever we can do, we should do to bring harmony, to eliminate the hatred, among all religions. It's world politics. As Asad Bhai said, maybe politicians are partly responsible, but I always think they are mainly responsible for, it's not only Muslims or Jews, like in different countries, like different religions or color, due to hatred comes, and then these kinds of killings and activists. So we will be ending soon. Thank you, Eva, Debbie, and Robin for this session. So I will invite Hasina Kader, our president.
Can I just say,
Yeah.
It's like the politicians or the world politics actually using this religious platform to do their to fulfill their, I don't know what's the political agenda, but religion is not like that. To me, it's like a evident thing which I see as a guidance. I can see as build a nice society, or and so we should be we are becoming aware of this more and more. Yeah, that's it.
So another question came in. Mr. Khaled, please go ahead. Oh, in the chat. So the question is, oh my God, this is a long question. If we set the long history aside and look into recent past only, yes, there have been disputes over the lands between the Palestine and Israel, while the former thinks that they have been robbed of their lands. This enhanced the anti-Semitic feeling among the Muslims all over the world, as fellow brother, very true. On the other hand, there have been blasts in the Friday prayers of Muslims in funeral processions, most likely to have been executed by the fellow brothers. One more thing, power, money have always been the driving force from time immemorial. Hatred has been the byproduct. Now, as interesting question from my part, if there were less economic disparity among the communities, whatever they are, would the feeling of hatred among communities be substantially low? Actually, communism itself surfaced, perhaps from these discriminations. Well, this is my point of view. Would like to know your thought on this. And finally, we do agree, as the sons and daughters of Adam, there should never be any hatred among human beings. However, if it is there, unfortunately. So Eva, Debbie, any response on this?
Well,
so the main question is economic disparity. If less economic disparity leads to less hatred. I don't know.
And, we strongly believe that, again, it's dialogue that is the key to moving forward, to understanding. So, Shimon, as we know, we set clear that we don't want to get into politics, but just that human rights for all, and human rights is obviously, religious freedom, economic freedom, and all of these have to be addressed, but they can't be addressed through violence. They can only be addressed through dialogue. And that's what we strive to do. Just as a point of interest, there are so many incredible organizations in Israel working with Palestinians to create harmony and addressing human rights, but we never hear about those, right? But anyway, we don't want to get political here, but we agree that the only way forward is recognizing each other as human beings.
Okay. And also, economic disparity is not the only reason. I think there are other reasons. Otherwise, communism could solve everything, but that didn't happen to the world. So maybe there are other root causes that we have to work on it. So now I will hand over to Hasina Kaderappa, our president, to say for her concluding remarks.
Good afternoon, Eva and Debbie and Monica, Linda, and Robin. It's very, very nice presentation, and it's very, very nice that I know that you actually thought about the adversity during the conversation that we had, email conversation. So, and I'm happy that it went very well, and happy that everybody took it very positively. Today we were able to separate our religion. And I think that we sat on a platform that how we can, as a humanity, as a human, how we can share our experience, our gift of love we can exchange and share. And I think that was beautiful. We know about Islamophobia. We were happy that we received the funds from the Anti-Racism Directorate. Canada is a multicultural country, and not very long period, they have taken this initiative to fund the grassroots level organization to take initiative to increase the awareness of anti-hate and racism. As we are Muslim, we are facing the racism. We don't want to talk about racism. Racism happens between family. Racism happens between the community, but that's different. But broadly, we all face racism. And the story that you actually revealed is painful. It's painful for all of us. And we all echoed that through the discussion from Dr. Awal and also Muhammad Rahman, and then other person really, there was another person that, Hakeem. Yeah, so I'm sure that we all are in equal path, that we should aim for justice, social justice, and humanity, rather than religion is actually our belief. I think that we all love our God, Allah. We just want to go there in a different path. And that should be putting aside and be a human being. And I think that we all discussed, and your presentation was beautiful, very informative, and also very touching. That's very important, that you actually showed the lived experience through your story. And that's very beautiful. That's very important that you showed. And we are happy that with the help of the funding, we were able to have this kind of session. We had a lot of sessions. This is one of the last session, not the least. We are going to have one on how the LGBT community also facing racism. We are all facing at a different level. So we are happy that we are all able to put aside the religion. Everybody should be thinking about own religion, how they want to keep their faith continuing. And as Eva mentioned, that happy Nowruz and happy Ramadan, it's important that you are open. But I just have one question to the ladies, that why this movement is women to women? Is not the Jewish community men, they want to extend their hand to you? Why the ladies has to come forward and take this movement? Is it just it happened that is so ironic? This is a month of International Women's Celebration. Is it the ladies are taking the lead for everything, including the role of a woman, a mother, and a daughter, and a granddaughter? I don't know, but I was thinking when you were talking that why the women to women is taking this lead, and it is getting well. And one of the things that I was very touched that you wanted Rashad Usman to be part of it. And Shad Usman was a part of our board of directors. That's what I know him very well. So I actually have sent him an invitation. Unfortunately, he's a very busy man. He couldn't be here. And I'm sure that if he was here, we could hear some good words from him, right? So from an imam. So it was amazing to know that you are working with an imam, you are working with CCMW, right? That gave us a lot of encouragement. That gave us a lot of information that you are strong. You are working together. You are working in partnership and collaboration. So thank you so much to be here today and be with us. And definitely in the future, if there is room for us to be together, we will. And we'll hear a story more. But we also suffer, but our story is not as painful as yours. So thank you so much for sharing. It was tough, I know, but you did it. A great job. Thank you so much to be here today from all of us.
Thank you, Hasina. Thank you.
May I make a comment?
Sure.
Hasina, I thought that was a brilliant question about why are we only with women? And the reason is building bridges. In our community, others are concerned with anti-Semitism, but we felt that if we speak to women, as women, we have a lot in common. I think that showed here today in some of our comments. And so we're hoping to reach out to other ethnic women who have been suffering from hate, and perhaps together we can do something to stop it or to eliminate it. It's not just for the men, you know, as women, I think we can be effective.
Oh,
Thank you.
definitely. Women are the best.
Let's
end on that note.
Can we end on that note? Men only fight and women repairs.
That's right. And we are women.
One thing, women are the difference maker. No question. There is no question. So I'm respectfully, our brothers are here. So it's not something to do any like there is another thing. It's just that it is fact that God has given us 10 hands to manage multitasking, to do things, to make it happen. So that's it happening anyway. Thank you so much again.
Thank you.
Thank you, Hasina. Looking forward to more events together. Thank you.
Sure.
Thank you. Thank you. Have a good day, everyone.
You
Bye.
Thank you so much.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
See you.